I love sweater dresses. They're my favorite. Any chance I get to wear one, I will. And any opportunity I have to upgrade a basic one, I will. I saw this Alexander McQueen sweater and instantly thought of the black sweater dress I got from Target a while ago. I love how the black sequence on the original is so packed and stacked, just giving it a 3D feeling. I figured I could probably get a look like this for much cheaper, so I decided to give it a try. Let's take a look at what materials you'll need for this project. Sweater, sequins in the same color as the sweater, in various sizes and or shapes, tulle the same color as the sweater, scissors, straight pins, chalk, sewing needle and thread, measuring tape, embroidery square or hoop. Where I purchased my materials from will be listed on the blog. Link to the blog is below. Okay, let's get started. First thing, put the sweater on so you can see how far up the forearm you want the sequins to go. Use chalk to mark that point on the sweater sleeve. Next, take the sweater off and lay the sleeve flat on your work surface. Use measuring tape to measure from the sleeve cuff up to the chalk line. Also measure the width of the sleeve. The tulle I'm using is already about 7 inches wide, so I'm not going to worry about cutting it for width. For the length, you can measure that 2 different ways. First way you can measure is to do it before putting the tulle onto the embroidery square. If you do it this way, remember to add a few inches to the measurement for the piece of tulle that will be trapped in the embroidery square's edge. That's why I measured up an additional 3 inches from the end of the tulle. The other way to measure is to set the tulle up in the embroidery square first, then use the measuring tape to measure up from the bottom of the embroidery square. Use a straight pin to mark that point off. Once your measurements are set on your tulle, you can go ahead and start sewing the sequins on. This was the first of the 2 sequins panels that I did. I would recommend doing something which I did not do on the first one, and that is do not sew the sequins directly onto the edge of the tulle. I should have left at least 1/2 inch seam allowance on the side, which would have made attaching the panel to the sweater sleeve easier. So make sure to leave a seam allowance on each side. Sew the sequins to the tulle in rows going all the way up to your stopping point. I alternated using large, medium, and small sequins to fill up the panel. Overlap the sequins as you sew and make sure there are no bald spots. Once you reach the end point, go ahead and cut the tulle just above the stop line. 1 panel down, 1 more to go. We're just going to repeat all the steps that we used to make the first panel. So measure again, set the tulle in the embroidery square again, and start sewing on the sequins again. With both panels done, it's time to move on to the next phase of the project, actually attaching the panels to the sleeves. Lay the sweater sleeve flat onto your work surface. Make sure that the seam on the underside of the sleeve is centered. Take your sequins panel and lay it on top of the sweater. The original sweater has a ribbed cuff, so the sequins doesn't start directly on the end of the sleeve. And my sweater doesn't have a defined cuff, so I decided to just start my sequins panel up about 1.5 inches from the end of the sleeve. Use straight pins to mark that location and attach the panel to the sleeve. Next, I thought this step would only be helpful with the pinning of the panel to the sleeve, but it turns out it was helpful with sewing as well. Insert a cylinder object inside the sleeve. I used a can of tennis balls, but you could use a tall glass or plastic cup, anything that's going to puff the sleeve out to hold its shape. Use straight pins to pin the tulle to the sleeve. I ended up keeping the tennis ball can inside the sleeve, which made sewing of the tulle panel onto the sleeve much easier. I just did a basic running stitch, weaving the thread in and out all the way around the panel. When you're done sewing the panel to the sleeve, remove all of the straight pins. Then use scissors to cut away any of the excess tulle. Be careful not to cut any of the sequins, stitches, or the sweater. After completing the first sleeve, just repeat the steps, measure, pin, sew, trim to attach the sequins panel to the other sleeve. Once both panels are attached, you're done. I love this addition of sequins to the dress. The only thing I would do differently if I was to do this project again would be to wrap the sequins area all the way around the whole section of the sleeve instead of only having the sequins on top of the sleeve. Comment below if you plan on doing this project. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be alerted when the next video drops.